So today I wanted to go through a few different topics with you guys. Firstly, have a look at how we're doing using process AI within our customer success organization. Then I'm going to invite Orix Australia up on stage. We're going to talk a little bit about their story, their journey, and how they're using AI. And then finally, we'll do a bit of Q&A, and we'll invite Mark Talbot up from our incubation group as well to answer some of your questions. So look, I think we're all kind of familiar with the promise. AI is going to be a game changer for business. It's going to unlock transformational opportunities. It's going to revolutionize industries and shape the future of work, right? We've all heard about the buzz and the excitement. And we're now at that point where it's really about making sure that we get value out of AI. And you've been hearing a lot about that within the conference today. So what we want to do is make sure that we're using our customer success approaches to applying AI, and that's going to allow us to achieve that business outcome. So we've actually been doing this with the leading insurer down in Australia over the last 12 months or so. And they were actually sort of looking to reinvent their underwriting process, leveraging AI, and make sure they could improve the efficiency within their organization. The idea would be that those efficiencies would lead to the greater revenue potentials and the ability to drive more business. They'd actually tried it a couple of times already, and so they turned to us to try and help them out and try and accomplish that. And we did a little bit of work with our engineering team to try and make that happen. It's a really good example of the term boring AI. So boring AI is a term that was coined by one of our founders, Mike Beckley, but it's this idea of we want to use AI in targeted ways along your process to accomplish an end-to-end journey and do it with more efficiency. But more on that a little bit later. What I want to do is now sort of explore how we've been doing since that AI buzz and hype kicked off. So it all started, I think, really over the last few years, and many customers started their journey with what we like to call the island of prototypes. So this is an idea of, we do some exciting pilot projects, we get some initial wins, maybe in small targeted ways, and that creates a lot of buzz and excitement. And that leads to sky-high expectations around AI's capabilities. And I think everyone's seeing this, and it's probably seeing this within their organizations, of very, very high expectations, but maybe the benefits are lagging a little bit. And this is the part of it that we think has to change. So ideally, it's an island, and underneath is nice sand, and it's lovely, it's tropical, and maybe this is the view maybe your executives see, or maybe your staff that are using AI in a co-pilot sort of way for simple things see. Right? AI is perfect, it does everything, it's amazing, right? Everyone's heard that from someone. The reality of it, when it's actually coming to applying that at enterprise scale, is far different, right? How do I deal with the data security? How do I make sure that my integration complexity is solved for? Then I've got my compliance teams. I've got to look at scalability. What are the tokens going to cost? How do I orchestrate all of this? And do I have the right governance in place? These are real world challenges that people are seeing when it comes to actually executing on their transformation agendas. In fact, the analysts have been doing a lot of reports, right? So we've got many different pilot projects and people have been seeing this, but the analyst reports show, and some of them state up to 80%, that of these pilots are not getting into production and delivering production value. I don't know about you, but that to me is well below the mark of what a pass should be. So I mentioned Mark from our AI incubation team, but this is a team that we've put together to really make sure that we're getting a good view of what's happening in industry and really make sure that we're at the forefront of what's going on with AI. And it's a customer success group that's full of experts that are looking at AI day in, day out. And so we asked them, what are the challenges? What are we hearing from our customers when we talk to them and understand what the issues are that they're seeing? So the first one, isolation in AI. So maybe there's a small model, does some machine learning. Maybe it's a large language model that you've got somewhere that solves for a particular task. If it's isolated and if it's not part of that end-to-end journey, then it's very difficult and costly to solve for getting the scaffolding around it so that it can actually apply and get business value. That same approach leads to a lack of structure. So we're asking AI to try and invent what it needs to do. It's not as sure of what its end outcome should be. And this is something that we see a difference in our vision in terms of we want to bring AI to where the work is. Naturally, we all know that the lifeblood of AI is data, right? And so without the right accessibility, security, or ability to tap into that data when needed, then our AI models are going to be less powerful and less capable of delivering the outcomes that we need. And if we don't have the right guardrails and safety measures in place, then AI can hallucinate, right? And if our AI doesn't have structures in place, and if it doesn't have auditing in place, then how do we know whether it's hallucinating or not? How do we know whether the outcome is actually what we were seeking? And because it's a black box, right, we maybe don't have visibility into what's going on. We can't capture the ROI. We don't get the measures. We don't get the metrics, right? And without that, it's difficult to justify further investment. It's harder to do more. It's harder to go on and do the next piece. Then, okay, let's say we get through all of that. Now we've got to scale it, right? And this means scaling from the perspective of, technology side of the house, right? I've got to make sure I've got the right infrastructure in place. I've got to make sure I've got the right scaffolding. I've got to make sure that I'm actually ready to do it on a technical level. But equally, scaling also means change management. Scaling means getting through my organization. Scaling means solving for the human part of the problem as well. Naturally, there's a solution, and I think you probably got where this was going by now, right? But at Appian, we believe there's a solution to this, which is our process AI approach. We make it easy with process. In just 1 or 2 clicks, we can leverage AI in the same way that we would use a user interface, or we could use a rule, or we could apply an API. Your existing designers can do this today. Process gives AI structure, and that means it's contributing to a larger goal, right? It's part of that end-to-end journey, and we've got all the ability to make sure that we can put an escalation path there. We can capture an error. We can see if something's happened that was unintended, and we can make sure that it routes to the appropriate location. And of course, we've got a solution to the data side of the house as well, right? Our data fabric means that you can access data from within Appian, but also from external systems across your organization and bring that together. And by accessing that data, we already know that it's secure because we can apply that row-level security in the data as well, and we can feed the data into the AI model on a just-in-time basis. Of course, there's a safety side too. By having the guardrails in place, everything has a pre-written understanding of where it needs to be heading, and when things route off of that, we can capture it, we can have an error, we can adjust for it, we can have an escalation process, we can have an administrator that's seen what happened. We've got that safety. We're not asking for AI to operate in a way where it's completely, making sure that it's inventing the process. We've got built-in analytics, so whether that's the process side of the house or whether that's our process analytics or process HQ, we can see everything that's occurring along the process at any given point in time. So everything is time-stamped. We see the data going in, we see the data coming out, and that means that when it comes to solving for the ROI aspect of things, we understand everything that's occurred and we can make that happen at that point in time. And then naturally, as with everything with Appian, you've got an expectation that it's got all the right certification levels, it's going to be highly available, it's going to scale, you can leverage auto scale. That's all taken care of. That's not something you have to try and worry about as an engineer or whatever it may be. So within customer success, we want to make sure that we're aligning to that vision that the company has and that we've got an approach to solve for these things as well. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we're doing within the organization to make sure that we're best placed to help you bring value and potential out of AI. So first, that AI incubation team that I spoke about. As I said, a talented group of engineers that are talking about AI every day with our customers and capturing real-world feedback so that we know what's going on in the marketplace and we're best placed to help you solve your problems. Those same teams are then working with our customer success teams on the ground to make sure that they understand the best practices and know how to work forward and implement things. But we don't just work within CS. We're not a silo. We work with our product teams as well. And so this means that we've got a product team that's working with our customer success organization on what's coming down in the product and what we should be bringing to market. But equally, we're a feedback loop working with our customers that informs product. So in solving your business requirements, that's going to lead to us to understand better what we need to do in market, and we can then take that and build it into the product as well. Naturally, everyone in customer success is a process expert. For 25 years, we've been doing solving process problems using Appian. We are the process company, and our team in customer success is used to doing this day in, day out. We don't want to look at just a targeted, isolated problem. We want to look at your biggest, most complex, meaningful, mission-critical solutions. And in doing that, what we want to do is make sure that we track that end-to-end journey and we can understand what the real benefit is that you need to achieve, but also figure out where AI applies uniquely to solve those problems. Any solution that we come up with, it's not just going to be, oh, AI for that, right? That's not the answer. The answer is a combination of various different technology and tools that we need to bring together and orchestrate to create that end-to-end solution. And of course, it's got to be designed for scale. If we're doing the most meaningful business problems, then we need to assume that the volumes are going to be high, the stakes are going to be high, and that the value, if we can achieve that outcome, is going to be exceptional as well. So to make sure of that, we don't just stop at delivery. We want to work past that. We want to get through into understanding what the achievement is, what the ROI is, and what the key measures are to your business that you want to track as part of your product. And we want to actually build that into the application. This means that when you do go live and you start getting production usage, you can understand, how have I succeeded? Have I achieved the goals that I set out to achieve? Or what do I need to adjust in order to get more value from what I've done? So I want to come back to that story from a little bit earlier. I mentioned that we were working with a large insurer. This organization writes $10 billion in premiums annually. They had a challenge working with their brokers. Their brokers would do submissions to them, and they get lots of these. The underwriters, they're highly qualified, highly trained, and they're there to make deals. They get quotes out, get deals, grow the book, make sure their business is expanding. However, what was really occurring is that the underwriters were spending all their time trying to triage all this documentation that was being provided by brokers in an unlimited amount of variations. These submissions were a list of assets. There could be thousands. It'd be a quote slip and it'd be a claims history, which again would be potentially a lengthy document of all the claims they'd had previously. They had to correlate all these data points in an attempt to try and get a quote submitted and get that out the door and get that process through the system. They tried some of the traditional approaches you might take to solve this problem, right? So many of you might have applied machine learning or IDP in these sort of situations before, but you need to train models, and that leads to a lengthy training process. And when the documentation is endless, it's not going to be effective. So they only got to about 65% across their top brokers at trying this approach, at which point they turned to us and they said, look, we want to work with you guys. We want to figure out how we can solve this problem, but here's where we need to get to. Here's where we're at right now. How do we do it? So our customer success team, in partnership with our engineering team, worked together to collaborate and put together a new solution. This new solution was a combination of generative AI. It did include some of the traditional methods of IDP data extraction as well. But we also use things like Excel tools, we use rules, and a whole bunch of things to build a framework that would ultimately solve for the problem. In the end, we got 95% accuracy of those documents, which, as I said, can be almost unlimited in variation, pulling hundreds of data points at times thousands when they've got significant asset schedules. They expect that this is going to lead to the ability for their brokers to maybe just do one more submission a month. And if they can do that, that's worth $400,000 to them in top-line revenue growth, right? And we think that's maybe understated because we've got brokers that were doing submissions that were taking 3 days, and they're now able to do it in 3 hours. So all this is a great example of AI in process. But what's great is that it's also an illustration of the power of CS, working with our product teams, because what's happened is that functionality that we built with this customer has now sort of given life to a new feature at Appian. You've seen it today in AI Document Center. So this is now capability that you have within your organizations to go and try and deploy out of market as well. So hopefully I've shared some things that maybe get the thoughts going, maybe get some excitement going in the room, and give you an opportunity to think about, okay, how might I engage or how might I look at AI in my organization? So our AI incubation team, they do this program called an AI Kickstart. It's a 1-month consultancy that basically allows them to work with you on an existing process and figure out how we can use generative AI within that. So whether you're working with Appian, whether you're working with a partner, we can do this. It's quite a quick service. And the idea is to just set you on the way of using AI within your business. And it's a great way to get started. Alternatively, if you're a new customer or prospect, or you're looking at a new application, we're also very focused on how we're going to apply AI within our Appian guarantees, expert delivery. Our Accelerate teams are focused on this as well. Okay, So at this point in time, I'm going to play a short video. This short video is going to look at a customer of ours in the region. They've been doing some great work with us, transforming multiple elements of their business, and it's quite diversified. But the customer is called Orix Australia. So I'm going to play a short video, and then I'll invite Elizabeth up on stage. Thank you.
I'm not just a delivery driver. I'm a business owner who gets things from A to where it needs to be.
I'm a part of something bigger, an important link in an incredible chain.
You meet all kinds of people on the road doing what I do. I think that's part of what I love about being a sales rep.
Oh, it's different every day. I spend a lot of time on site.
Maintaining a work-life balance, it's so important. Nothing like spending time with my family.
My employer is finding better ways to create a cleaner future, even while I'm on the road.
From the big cities to small towns, we move goods wherever they need to go.
Because being a small business, servicing our customers is our priority.
I'm proud to do my part to keep the economy moving.
And when you see the smiles on people's faces, that's what makes it all worthwhile.
At Orix, we work with our customers to find flexible solutions throughout the Asia-Pacific region to help better navigate the road ahead. Orix, we get where you're going.
All right. I love that video. It's a great sort of introduction. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Elizabeth Hall-Walsh up onto stage, General Manager, Enterprise Services and Innovation for Orix Australia. Okay, we get to take a seat. That's nice. Take a load off. So Elizabeth, thanks for joining us, and thanks for coming all the way to the US to join us at the conference, and I hope you've been enjoying it. But I think you've been traveling around a little bit beforehand as well.
Yes, we have. We had to get the obligatory amount of baseball in before we leave. So we went to Texas and watched a game there, and then my daughter, who's traveling with me, wanted to go to New Orleans, so we went to New Orleans, and then we ended up in Memphis. So we went, and for those of you that are familiar with the Peabody, we went and saw the Ducks march morning and evening for 3 days. So it's the last time I'm going to travel with my daughter.
Very good. That sounds wonderful. And how have you been finding the conference?
Look, the conference for me has been amazing. It's actually made me think completely differently about some of the problems and challenges that we've got. I'm going to ask you to bear with me, because even though I know the data that we're going to talk about today, I'm actually going to refer to notes, because I knew it all brilliantly before the last session. And the last session I went to was so mind-blowing in terms of where we need to go and what we should be leveraging and the order we're going to be doing it in, that I got back to the room and started to look and thought, I don't know this anymore. So conference is great.
I'm sure we'll be fine. So, I mean, obviously we've heard a little bit there around Orix, the organisation that they are and how they help Australians to run and operate their small businesses. I guess, can you share a little bit about what Orix Australia's objectives are with the Appian platform and what your role within that is?
Yeah, so look, as you probably gathered from the video, we're a specialised finance organisation. So we provide finance products and services across wheel-based assets and newly into new product areas like property development, finance, etc. So largely our business we're an aggregator of services and products. So we have a broad service base as well as a broad customer base, and we aggregate the services and provide them onto customers. So everything we do is extremely process driven. So what we needed a platform that we could leverage engagement for all of those diverse stakeholders, persona driven, and effectively providing sort of a meaningful way to gather the information, but also to be able to have end-to-end visibility of the processes as we deliver them. So our transition to Appian is a multi-year journey. We're leveraging the platform, as I say, for engagement, for the experience across all of our stakeholders, and for the measurement, and now for some real meaningful, valuable outcomes. In terms of my role, so the Enterprise Services and Innovation Division at Orix is a bit of a two-headed ship. So we're responsible both for the digital enablement across the organisation, but we also have the back office, asset lifecycle management, all of the contract service management, all of the basis of our pricing, etc., happens in the Enterprise Services and Innovation Division. So not only do I get to enable it to do it to everybody else, I also have to consume the services for the platform. So we actually have the twofold role in terms of what we do with the Appian platform.
That's great, and I think that that shift to sort of a digital operations perspective is something that we're seeing more and more. I think that's something that organizations are starting to do, is realize the value of using digital experience and transformation to drive an operations agenda as well. So yeah, very cool to sort of see that happening and playing out in real life. So I mean, maybe the next question I'd ask is around just sort of your decision to select Appian as a product. Can you talk me through sort of how you went through that evaluation?
So look, we reviewed the selection of the platform and this whole transformation not as a digital transformation, but as a business transformation. So for us, what we needed was a platform that would support our ability to change the way that we do things, change the way that we think about things, change the way, and enable us to move from being a wheels-based asset service provider to actually being a provider of digital experiences, aggregating services right the way across, and broadening our product base completely from just being a wheels-based service provider. We also needed a platform that actually came with a methodology embedded into the platform that enabled us to change the way that we do business, to make us much more agile and adaptive. So knowing that the context for the way that we were operating the business was changing, we determined that we wanted to go out and look for the right platform to support us with that. So we did a comprehensive review. It took us a little bit longer than we anticipated it was going to take. It ended up being about a 9-month process. And we reviewed a number of platforms out in the marketplace, but predominantly the criteria that we looked for was all around process orchestration excellence, because when you're an aggregator of services, you're heavily process-based, so you live and breathe by the value of the processes. We wanted a platform that would unify and manage our data right the way across the ecosystem, because our data sources are completely varied depending on which suppliers we're leveraging to deliver which bundle of services. It's also very important whenever you're in the finance business that you hold some significantly valuable, sensitive, and personally identifiable information. So it was important for us that we had a platform that had the ability to classify and store appropriately that data, redacting where possible so that it was only used for the purpose it was intended for use from. Automation first, so that it would be very remiss of us not to have a platform that had an automated first approach to delivery. But probably one of the most important, dear to heart things that we evaluated was we actually wanted a true platform. There are a number of so-called platforms out there that are a series of connected digital products which you sort of leverage and move between. And therefore, you don't ever really get the power of a platform that's got truly embedded capabilities like data fabric, like AI, like the new that sort of process HQ, etc. That's there. So for us, it was very dear that we needed a true platform, and that platform had a visionary roadmap that was always going to be developing with the technology. not too fast, please, but always developing and leveraging the technology. UX UI, it's our core platform for engagement and experience. So the UX UI was very important to us, and then obviously overall value cost ratios that you inevitably have to do. I'll tell you that Appian scored top in all bar one category. And that category, when we did all of the presentation demos and MVP, so proof of concept, proof of value stuff, was in UX UI. And the UI scored really poorly. Now, having said that, we've now delivered to market 2 MVP products, and our customers have absolutely loved the experience and absolutely find the UI intuitive and easy to use. So whatever we did in the trial process was obviously not as effective as it could be. But for us, Appian scored top in all bar that category, so there was no hesitation in moving forward, and the cost justification bore itself out.
That's great. I think UI UX is one of those things that we see there's a discrepancy maybe in terms of the way things are implemented. So in the hands of the right engineers, the right users, the Appian UX framework is incredibly powerful, and you can create great experiences. But equally, without a skilled user, you're falling short of that expectation as well.
Yep.
So I guess, what did you set out to accomplish with the Appian platform? So obviously the business transformation, but where have you focused? You talked about 2 MVPs. What does that look like?
Yeah, so for us, there were a number of sort of sacred cows, if you like, because this was going to change the way that we were doing business. It was really important that for every process we developed, that the process was contextually aware. And that it adapted to the change in the context or the environment. As you can imagine, funding deals, property deals versus funding a single vehicle versus an novated deal, they're all completely different. And so the processes needed to be contextually aware, and it was sacred to the way that we developed the application. It was also important that, as I talked about, we need to dynamically scale our business. We have a very fortunate position in that our average year-on-year growth is 11% in a market and in an industry that runs between 2% and 6%. So we're doing pretty well. However, from a cost basis, every time that we've poured the revenue in the front end, we've incrementally exploded our costs. So we're not actually materially realizing the benefits from the growth that we're generating. So for us, the platform had to enable us to dynamically scale without adding cost to what we were doing. It needed to have some sort of continuous learning ability, and also to be able to embed that knowledge to predict the next best action. In terms of intelligent interpretation of data, I've spoken about that. It was very important that we do that in the platform. The automate first approach, very important again. We don't want humans to touch anything. We want a very low touch service model for the majority of the business that we operate in. We also wanted to be able to measure those processes because we aggregate services over multiple suppliers to our customers. We actually needed to have end-to-end visibility of any processes that we automate, and the ability to continually measure and improve those, and for them also almost to be self-healing, right? So that is also embedded in the way that we've been developing. Again, as an aggregator of services and products, it's very important that we foster mutual shared accountability across our stakeholders that leverage it. And we're doing this by unifying them through the Appian platform. And again, the final piece for us in terms of it was, we just want to empower people to self-service. Doesn't matter who you are, which stakeholder you are, whether you're a supplier, a consumer of our services, or an employee. We want it all to be intuitive and self-serviced.
So I'm excited to ask this next question because I've got a bit of a running joke with my team. Every time I talk to them, the story at Orix seems to be getting better and better, right? The numbers are better. And I'm going to ask you about sort of some of the results that you've been able to achieve. Like, have they been the results you wanted? And what are the measurable impacts that you've been able to identify?
Look, our first MVP was around the origination to settlement piece. So for our novated business. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with novated, novated lease enables an employee to basically finance a vehicle for a period of time, finance all of the costs, fuel, etc. And the rental is deducted from their salaries pre-tax. So it's a significant benefit, and that the actual employer pays Orix, not the driver, right? That particular part of our business has very aggressive growth targets. Year on year, they're supposed to double over the next 3 years. We're also, just to make it more fun, we're also changing the basis of how that product is priced to the market. So it has traditionally been priced as a margin-based product. It's now moving to a fee-based product. Whenever you go to a fee-based product, your room for poor process just disappears completely. So it means that we have a real focus on optimizing the processes in that business and taking out as much cost as possible, and moving to that low-touch service model that I talked about. So leveraging Appian and working very closely, our development squads come from the CS group, we created a quote hub. So individual customers, employees can come in, they can compare vehicles, compare models, they can add accessories, they can sort of change colors, they can visualize the models, they can essentially then look at the services that would cost them, give them a comparison of cost over a 3, 6, 12-year period. Also gives them the ability to understand the negative equity periods for vehicles. Then they select their vehicle and they go directly into our origination, so into the credit decisioning process. Now, the credit decisioning process leverages the Appian decision models. So we've got a whole series of decision models that sit there and work out whether a person's credit is good. We automate the third-party credit checks, AML checks, and know your customer checks. And we use IDP for any documentation that we actually need to ingest and read, redact, and store securely. So we've leveraged quite a few of the capabilities in doing it. Our ROI measures prior were really about time to decision and a number of straight-through processing. And with that, we also made a conscious decision. For those of you that are familiar with the Australian market, we've had Optus breaches, we've had Medibank breaches, we've had a number of security breaches. So we took the decision that we wanted to avoid storing PII data and exposing PII data to our personnel. So prior to the application, 100% of decisions were made by credit analysts, and they were made based on the manual submission of documentation. There was little consistency in any of it. Even on the day, different days of the week for different credit analysts, there was little consistency. All quoting was done by Orix employees, so the customers didn't do any quoting. We did all of the quoting for them. And there were significant inconsistencies in that quoting period too. And all of the copies of documents that were required to be cited were stored and scattered across our ecosystem. They weren't in any single place. So this is the bit that gets Stuart excited. We're 7 months in. We did our MVP release last August. And we've done iterative releases since. In the last 4 months, we've had a 15% increase month on month in executions. So their business growth targets are up. 70% of all of our quotes are now generated by the customer. So that means only 30% of our increased number of executions actually have an Orix human touching them. Via our third-party integrations, 90% of the documents required to make credit decisioning are not don't come anywhere near Orix, are not cited by Orix. The other 10% we ingest via IDP. We use it for the purpose of the credit decision model, and then it gets stored and the information redacted. Now, this is the really good piece. Our credit decision timelines at commencement were an average of 4 weeks in this business line. No application now is undecided within 8 hours. So
Thank you. Round of applause.
That's huge. STP, so straight through processing, was 8% in month 1, and we were heroes, right? 8% STP. I think we had our first, and it was the first one actually went through at 2 a.m., right? Which also would never have happened in the past. So we had our first acceptance at 2 a.m. We're now 60%, right? Just over 60.9%. We are getting straight through processing, so untouched by human hands. And they're being decided in an average of 40 minutes. So from a customer experience perspective, the value that that's created for the business has been considerable. And now the last piece of iteration for this product was that we're using Appian AI capabilities to automatically generate the settlement documents and the post-settlement documents. So the contracts and the actual purchase orders that go out to purchase the assets, etc., and move the thing along. So have we achieved what we set out to achieve? I think we've achieved way more than we actually believed was possible.
Well done. It's obviously an incredible story from a business value perspective, but you articulated it so well. There's that combination of technologies that you're bringing together, whether it be integrations, other third parties, leveragement of sort of our AI extraction skills, all of that coming together to sort of create this solution. So it's sort of further evidence to the point that it's not just about one technology or tool. It's about being able to bring it all together and tie it together to solve a complex business problem. Can you tell me maybe quickly, because I want to get Mark up on stage for a few minutes as well, just around sort of how you're thinking about sort of AI adoption and leveraging that within your organization, maybe with some views from the conference as well?
Yeah, look, from our perspective, within the organization, it's all about the process, driving efficiency into our processes. So we try to discourage talking about technology in the business. We try to talk about what are we trying to solve? What are our mission critical issues that we need to solve? What are the processes that are going to generate the most value for us by automating? And they're often not the processes that people think of. And what we're actually finding is there's unintended benefit. And I think probably the clearest example we've got of that is we're an aggregator of services. So we're heavily reliant on third parties. So we process a lot of invoices. Right? Now, we had, if I look at just one particular area, repairs and maintenance, we had a backlog of up to 9 months worth of invoices in terms of processing, because they were all through humans. We had 17 individuals doing it. By going and using, in the first instance, IDP, we managed to get significant benefit. Then by actually reviewing and retraining and looking at these areas, the unintended benefit that we got was, one, we weren't on stop with the suppliers anymore. So when our customers rocked up to get services, they actually got the service that they wanted. So that was a core benefit. But it also gave us the ability to analyze the data and then really look at, were we better to continue paying our suppliers on a end of month plus 30-day term? Or was there benefit in us negotiating new rates, paying them on a smaller frequency cycle and getting a new line of revenue? And we did precisely that. So we moved to paying our suppliers on day of service +7, first of all, and now +3. And we've got a significant revenue line now of rebates and discounts that we get based on the fact that we're paying them, far greater than it would have been us to hang on to the cash for that period of time. Oh. So it's much more about sort of getting the right problems to solve than fostering technology within the organization.
Got it. Okay. I'm going to invite Mark Talbot up on stage as well. And we've got a few minutes left. We did start a little bit late, so maybe there'll be a bit of grace with that. But we want to make sure we get some questions from the audience. So if anyone does have a question, we're going to do it old school. We're going to rove with mics, so you can just yell out. But I'm happy to just point to people as they put their hands up.
Just can you size the organization? Just give us a little reference, like how many people it started with from your development team and your sustainment team. Do you have to deal with multiple time zones? Started 2 years ago with 10 people. Now you have 30 people. Can you give us a little bit of that high level?
So our Appian journey really started last May. So we're probably 12 months into the process. When we started with one squad. Each squad has 3 developers, 2 BAs, 2 testers. When we began to drop the value, we had to scale up very quickly, and I think look to Stuart.
I'm struggling with it.
No. Stuart scaled very quickly with us. We're now running 3 squads. That's 9 developers and 6 BAs, 7 testers across to deliver for what we're doing. But the 3 squads have got different. So one's working in rental, one's working on the next MVP, which is our channel business, so origination to settlement. And then the third one, because our business is so service-driven, is working on a service catalog and giving customers the ability to pick and choose services. So we've scaled as we've gone along. Now we still have our existing environment. We still have 5 full-stack devs working in our existing world to keep that running as we gradually progress. But that's the sort of size. From a Australia, New Zealand perspective, we're about 360 people. We have a $2 billion or $2.5 billion asset book. And, we actually, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, make the Australian ATO top 1,000 from a revenue perspective. It's a pretty bad thing, actually, but because they come in and audit you a little bit more. But so that's the sort of size and scale of our business.
The last thing is, how do you get feedback for change from the users?
So we actually run everything as a complete fusion from start to finish. So from sprint 0 right the way through to the incremental change, the CI/CD stuff we're doing now. We actually have representatives from the business that sit in stand-ups every day. We do every 2 weeks we do a showcase. We actually learn after the first implementation that it was no good doing UAT right at the very end, because despite doing all of the showcases, it wasn't working for the users. So we now build into our sprint cycles after every major part a 2-week UAT process, usually every 3 or 4 weeks. So they're continually using the application. So by the time we actually get to releasing the MVP, we're not training, we're not, people know it. But it was iterative, it was hard. The first time round, the first one was hard. We didn't get the customer comms right, we didn't get the employee involvement right, but we certainly learned, and it's been a very, they're so integrated into the program now that I don't know how we operate without them.
Any other questions? Can we get a technical one for Mark? Someone test him. Mark is the AI guy, so he's the one to answer your questions.
We do have one. Abby.
Hi. How did you integrate AI with the AML that you were talking about? Can you speak a little bit about that?
Okay. So from our perspective, effectively, what happens is the customer keys, the information gets taken to a third party. The third party verifies the basis of what we've specified as our criteria. That then comes back into our decision model and make sure that it meets all of the criteria. So the AI piece is really in the model for us. The difficulty that we had was not too many third parties would verify foreign passports, foreign identities that didn't have valid visas for Australia. Now, that happens quite frequently. I didn't realise how frequently until we put it in. So we had to cater for some different changes in that space. And so therefore we do the foreign verifications ourselves. And so that is done using IDP and then back into the AI model.
Okay, and I think I'm getting the signal that we're wrapping it up. But what I will say is that we'll hang around by the stage. I think all of us are happy to do that. If you've got any questions, come up and have a chat. I'm sure, many questions for Elizabeth. But as I said, Mark is sort of our forefront expert and architect around the AI side of things. So do come grab him as well.
Great. And one quick promo, 11:30 tomorrow, I'm going to have a 1-hour session on Document Center and Document AI. So happy to answer more questions at that time.
Brilliant. Thank you all for your attendance.